What's going on, everybody? I am on break and I have been back at home with my family, so I decided that why not teach my dad how to sports bet. So today I have my dad with me and I'm going to be teaching him everything that I know about sports betting to hopefully make him some money and just teach him everything I know. So Dad, why don't you come here and say what's up? Alright guys, this is my dad, and today we are just going to go over a bunch of the different stuff, the basics, sports betting, and just try to make him as much money as possible. So Dad, do you know anything about sports betting, or how much do you know?
Nope. You don't know anything.
So my dad knows absolutely nothing about sports betting. He knows what I do and stuff. He's a big sports fan, I believe, right? What's your favorite basketball team?
Lakers.
He's a Lakers fan, and then you're also what, a Lions fan?
No.
What's your favorite NFL team?
The Rams.
Oh, he's a Rams fan. Okay, so basically, he knows a good amount about sports. He's been playing a bunch of sports his whole life, and so have I. So it really shouldn't be too hard to explain to him most of the, I guess, terminology and the basics when it comes to sports betting. But I mean, I guess we'll see, right? Alright guys, so as you know, I am a professional sports bettor, and I've been doing this for a couple years now, so it's kind of surprising to me how my dad still hasn't caught on about sports betting or hasn't even tried once. So we're just going to be going over a bunch of different stuff throughout this video. I might even break it into two different parts. But just to start off, we're going to go over the complete basics, starting with the different types of sports bets. So, Dad, when it comes to sports betting, there are a bunch of different things that we can actually bet on here, right? So do you kind of know, like, have a little bit of foundation with what there is to actually bet on?
Probably over-under.
Okay. Yeah, so over-unders is a huge one, but there's just a bunch of different types of bets, right? So we can literally bet on who's going to win the game.
Okay.
We can bet on by how much they're going to win the game. You know, there are things like singles, parlays, like you mentioned, over-under total points. There's a bunch of different things. Starting off with the easiest one and probably the most important and simple one to bet on is called a money line. And the reason why we need to understand, you know, the different types of sports bets is because they all work differently, okay? And sports bets, right, some of them have different strategies, like on how we should be betting on them. Right, so not all of them work the same. So it's kind of important to understand what we're actually betting on here. So the first one is money lines, and that literally means, like I mentioned, we're just wagering on who's gonna win the event. So if we have the Lakers playing versus the Warriors, if we bet the Lakers money line, that means we're taking the Lakers to win, and vice versa. Very simple, very easy. There's really not much to it there. Now the second one we have is called point spread bets. All right, and point spreads basically means, you know, we're betting on the margin of victory. So, you know, if we give a point spread of like minus 2.5 or plus 2.5, you've kind of seen those before on, like, I guess, Yahoo News or whatever, on Bleacher Report. They cover the spread, they didn't cover the spread. Basically, we're betting on if they are going to win the game by a specific amount of points. So let's say we have, for sake of example, again, we have the Warriors and the Lakers playing. And the spread for that night is Warriors minus 2.5. That basically means that we're betting the Warriors to win by 3 points or more, right? Because if we take away 2.5 points from their total score, they would still have more points than the Lakers. They would have still won. Does that make sense? And then so if we have the opposite end of that, which would be the Lakers 2.5 plus 2.5, that would mean that we're betting the Lakers to win. If we added 2.5 points to their score, they would beat the Warriors. So they could still lose by 2, but cover the spread. Does that make sense? So spreads kind of can be a little bit confusing right off the rip, but just with a little bit of practice and a little bit of, I guess, research, it's really not too hard to understand. Next, you mentioned the over and unders, like, right, total points, right? This is a very simple explanation as well. You know, we're betting on whether the game will have a specific amount of points, and it will go over or under. So if the line is at like 200 points for a basketball game, we're kind of estimating that each team will score around 100 points. And if we take the over, that means we think that, you know, the total score from both the teams combined will be either 201 or above. Or if we take the under, it'll be 199 and below. Again, very simple. Just kind of going over the different types of sports bets here to get him started on the foundation and basics. And then we'll get into the actual good stuff. But next we have parlays and straight bets. So the difference between a parlay and a straight bet is The straight bet, we're taking one single action to happen. So we can bet the Lakers to win, right? That's a straight bet. Or we can bet the Warriors to cover a spread. It can be any type of bet, but just by itself. We're called a single. A parlay is when we combine a bunch of different things, a bunch of different bets, into one slip. So basically we're saying all of that stuff needs to happen in order for us to win any money, or we don't win any money at all. Now the reason most people do parlays is because the action of combining all of these bets together into one slip will significantly increase the amount of money that they win, right? So let's say, for example, we take the Warriors to win by itself. It would probably only pay us out like 2 times our money, versus if we took the Warriors to win plus the Lions to win that night plus the Dodgers to win that night. That's going to significantly increase our payout. Does that make sense? Okay, and then next we have something called futures. And futures, this is probably one of the worst types of bets to take on a sports book because it's not really too profitable, and it really is just betting on long-term actions to happen, like who's going to win the NBA Finals, who's going to win MVP of 2025, stuff like that. Every time you bet a future, you're basically just donating money to the sports book because it's really kind of hard to be profitable with data-driven strategies using futures, if that makes any sense. And we'll go over what that even means later on in this video. But those are just the types of sports bets that we have available to take. And it's really not too complicated. Do you have any questions?
No, not right now.
A little overwhelming?
A little bit.
Okay. It'll get relatively more simple as we go on. But those are just the different types of sports bets. And now I kind of want to move on to odds. Now, odds, if you guys have been watching my channel for a long time, you guys know that odds is probably the most important thing when it comes to betting on sports. Getting the best price for a specific bet is how I'm profitable. That's like my whole strategy, right? Most people, when they sports bet, what they'll do is they'll say, hey, I'm a fan of the Warriors, so I'm gonna bet that they win tonight. Or Steph Curry's my favorite player, so I'm gonna bet that he scores over 25 points tonight with no basis, no research, nothing like that. Or a lot of times what they'll do is they'll look into past history or matchups, right? So the past times the Warriors have played the Lakers, Steph scored over 24 points. Or 4 times out of the last 5, the Warriors beat the Lakers. So a lot of times people look into that type of history or matchup analysis to base off what they're picking that night. That kind of makes sense? But that isn't really sustainable long term because just because it happened in the past doesn't dictate what's going to happen in the future, right? No one can tell what is going to happen tomorrow. No one has a magical crystal ball to tell who's going to win the game, who's going to score any amount of points, no matter what type of data or history they have. So the most important thing when it comes to sports betting is the odds, right? The odds is the price that we're getting it at. So basically you will see different types of odds when it comes to sports betting, and it formats like this: a plus number and a minus number. We have the 49ers versus the Eagles. Now, the 49ers, you can see their money spread was at plus 124 to win. And the Philadelphia Eagles were at minus 146. So basically what that means is when there's a positive side number, that means that they are the underdogs, considered quote-unquote the underdogs. And you'll get paid out more if that bet hits. The minus side number means that they are favorites, right? You get paid out less if you take that one to hit because they're basically saying that the sports books think that this one is a favorable bet, right? They think this is the team that's going to win. So what we can actually do to understand how these odds pay you out is if we were to take this plus 124 odds, that basically means for every $100 that you put in, you get paid out $124 in profits. So a 224 payout, right? For the negative side odd, it's for every $146 that you put in, you'll get paid out $100 back. So I'll put out the odds equation on the screen right now for you guys to kind of calculate yourself. But yeah, I mean, odds can be kind of hard to understand and kind of complicated, but a lot of the common odds that you'll see is something called even money, where even money is just plus 100, basically just 2 timesing your original wager, right? So you'll get even money, kind of like when you're playing blackjack and you get a 21 and the dealer has an ace. You can take even money instead of risking that the dealer has a 21. So that's basically what a plus 100 quote unquote even money is. So just kind of to understand, the larger the negative number, so if it was like minus 180, that would mean it's way more of a favorite than, let's say, a minus 146, minus 200, minus 300. That'll pay you out a lot less and less as the favorites go on. And then same thing with the plus side. The larger the plus side odd, the more of an underdog that prop is, and you'll end up getting paid out more. And so now that we kind of understand how odds work, how they're calculated, we're going to go over the different types of sports betting apps, right? Now, you guys already know that this is another part, or kind of the second part of how I remain super profitable. Like I mentioned before, my strategy is being able to find the best priced odds across the entire sports betting market. Okay, so I want you to think about the stock market real quick, and think of like the price of the Apple stock. Whether you go on E-Trade, whether you go on Robinhood, whether you go on Webull, the price of the Apple stock remains relatively the same across all platforms, right? It is completely different with the sports betting market. All of these sports books, there's thousands of them across the country. They each set their own lines and their own odds independently. That's how they remain competitive with one another, because if not, we wouldn't need thousands of sports books, right? Because they set their own odds and lines independently, there are going to be times where they have better priced odds than other sports books. So, for example, we have FanDuel, Bet365, DraftKings, BetMGM, Caesars, and PointsBet. These are 6 different types of sports books that oftentimes, a lot of people use to, I guess you could say they're really popular. So let's say, for sake of example, right, on DraftKings right here, we have the Warriors to win against the Lakers at even money. You remember what even money means? Plus 100. So DraftKings has the Warriors to win at plus 100. But then we go over to FanDuel and we see that they have the Warriors to win at plus 140. Now we go over to BetMGM, we have the Warriors to win at plus 135. And we go over to Caesars or all of these other sports books, and we can kind of see that they all have the Warriors to win at a better price than DraftKings does. Right? Because remember, if we take it at plus 140, we're getting paid out a lot more money than at even money, right? We're getting paid out $40 more if we put in $100. That's a 40 cents discount, right? So basically, what that means is, that doesn't mean that, the Warriors have any less of a chance to win on DraftKings, right? Because it's the same exact bet. It's basically like if you're shopping for a pair of shoes, right, at one store and they have it for $100, and you go down the street, they have the exact same pair of shoes in the exact same condition for $50, right? It's basically just called line shopping, where we're going across different sports books to literally just find the best price for a certain prop. Now, the reason this is a very profitable strategy compared to spending your time researching or betting with your emotions and just because it's your favorite team, right, is because in the long term, if you're betting with a discount, you will remain profitable. And this is a strategy called positive EV. So it's like if you are day trading and you are buying a stock for $100, and then this guy is buying a stock for $140, and you're reselling it for $300. Over time, this guy is going to be a lot more profitable because he's shopping with the discount, right? He bought this stock for a lot cheaper than this guy bought the stock. So over time, this guy will be way more profitable than this guy. Because like I mentioned, the resale value for these props is the exact same. Just because one book has it priced differently than the other one doesn't mean that, there's some sort of advantage or some sort of, something that we don't know. So basically, my strategy is just searching for the best price across multiple different sports books. Does that make sense? All right, and you guys know that is known as positive EV, and kind of my whole basis behind that is, right, data runs the world, so it should run your sports betting too, okay? And the law of large numbers, if you remember what that means from statistics, basically, if you have some sort of probability, right? Let's say, the odds of some prop hitting, let's say the Warriors, again, for sake of examples, plus 100, you have 50-50 odds, right? Because it's even money. The more higher or lower that, price goes, your odds are going either up or going down. The true probability, you can say, of that prop hitting. So, right, with this quote-unquote true probability, you can think of it like, you're flipping a coin, right? Every time you flip a coin, you have a 50% chance to land on heads, 50% chance to land on tails. But now let's say, right, you have a coin that's weighted. It's 54% chance to land on heads and 46% chance to land on tails. Now that you know that coin is weighted, if you were to bet against someone, you would never take tails. Even though there was a chance that it still could land on tails, you still wouldn't take it because that's stupid, right? That would be mathematically unprofitable. And that's kind of the same thing with sports betting, right? Why would we ever take a line that is completely discounted on another sports book? It's almost the same thing with this coin here. Now, just because you flip the coin once, that doesn't mean it's always going to land on heads. That doesn't mean you're always going to win. There are going to be times when the coin could land on tails 5, 10 times in a row. But if you flip that coin now 1,000 times, right, that the law of large numbers basically says the more times that you flip that coin, the more times it'll average out to the true probability. You will be profitable if you get down enough volume. If you flip that coin 1,000 times, if you flip that coin 10,000 times, you're going to be profitable because you know, it's weighted. It's going to land on heads 54% of the time in the long run. So sports betting is a long run game for me. Okay? You have any questions? I know that was a long explanation, but nothing? You're good? You sure? Okay, so can you kind of run down what my strategy is real quick, just so I know you understand?
Basically, to find the sports book betting apps that give the user the best odds on the betting
Yes.
being offered, right? Because there's so many out there, and not everybody will be offering the same sort of odds.
Right.
So you want to find the one that's going to be in your favor.
Right.
And also, if you do this long enough, then it's a numbers game, right? So eventually, it'll be in your favor to become and maintain profitability.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Profit.
All right, guys, so it seems like he understands the very basics. We went over what odds are, we went over the different types of bets, and we also went over the different types of sportsbook. So now, Dad, do you think you might be ready to try and get in your first bet today?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.